Audio Jungle.
The world often holds its breath during summits like the G20, not for the prepared speeches, but for the unscripted moments that reveal the true state of global affairs. One such moment, a seemingly casual trilateral meeting between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Narendra Modi, spoke volumes about the shifting sands of international power. Here were the leaders of the world's most powerful democracy, its most assertive autocracy, and its largest democracy, huddled together in a corner. The image itself was a masterclass in geopolitical symbolism. It was not a formal alliance being forged, but rather a public display of strategic alignment, a signal to the rest of the world that these three nations, despite their vast differences, recognized each other as indispensable players on the global stage. It was a moment that underscored the complex, multipolar world we now inhabit. This informal gathering was far more than a simple photo opportunity. It was a delicate dance of diplomacy. For Prime Minister Modi, it was a demonstration of India's arrival as a major power, capable of engaging with both Washington and Moscow on its own terms. For President Trump, it was an opportunity to project American strength and its ability to court diverse partners, particularly in its strategic competition with China. And for President Putin, it was a chance to show that Russia, despite Western sanctions and isolation attempts, remained a pivotal force with friends in high places. At its core, the relationship between India, China, Russia, and the United States is a grand four-way tug-of-war for power, influence, and prosperity. Each nation is pulling the rope in the direction that best serves its own interests, creating a state of constant tension and strategic realignment. For the United States, the primary goal is to maintain its position as the world's leading superpower. This involves containing the rise of its main strategic competitor, China. To do this, Washington seeks to build a network of allies and partners, with India being a crucial piece of that puzzle in the Indo-Pacific region. The United States envisions a democratic counterweight to China's authoritarian expansion, and it sees India's vast population, growing economy, and strategic location as the perfect fit for this role. China, on the other hand, is driven by a desire to reclaim what it sees as its historical position at the center of the world. Its goal is to become the dominant power in Asia, and eventually, a global leader that can rival the United States. This ambition puts it on a direct collision course with both the United States and India. With India, China engages in a complex relationship of economic cooperation mixed with military competition along their disputed border and a rivalry for influence across South Asia and the Indian Ocean. Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, for instance, is seen by New Delhi as a strategic encirclement, further complicating any prospect of genuine trust between the two Asian giants. The term China plus one has become a critical piece of vocabulary in the lexicon of global trade, and it represents a seismic shift in how the world thinks about manufacturing. For decades, China was the undisputed factory of the world. Companies from across the globe flocked there. Low labor costs, efficient infrastructure, massive production capacity. However, a combination of factors began to change this equation. Rising labor wages in China, coupled with growing geopolitical tensions and the vulnerabilities exposed by the COVID-19 pandemic, made multinational corporations nervous about having all their manufacturing eggs in one basket. The idea of China plus one was born from this anxiety. The strategy is simple in concept but complex in execution. Companies are not abandoning China entirely, but they are actively seeking a second, alternative manufacturing base to diversify their supply chains. This is a risk management strategy. If a factory in China is shut down due to a trade war, a pandemic, or a local policy change, a company can ramp up production in its plus one country, ensuring that its products still reach global markets. This has set off a massive worldwide hunt for the next great manufacturing hub. Vietnam, Thailand, Mexico have emerged as strong contenders, but for many the grand prize is India. India is seen as one of the few countries on Earth with the potential scale to truly rival China. It has a massive workforce, a young workforce, and an affordable workforce. The United States has been, increasingly vocal about its desire for a strong strategic partnership with India, often describing it as a cornerstone of its Indo-Pacific strategy. Washington sees India as a vital democratic counterweight to an authoritarian and expansionist China. The logic here is pretty compelling. A rising democratic India with its vast military and its growing economy can help maintain a balance of power in Asia, and uphold a rules-based international order. Because of this, we've seen enhanced military cooperation, joint naval exercises in the Indian Ocean, more intelligence sharing, and the sale of advanced American military technology to New Delhi. The US has also actively supported India's role in the Quad, a strategic dialogue that brings together the US, India, Japan, Australia, which is widely seen as a coalition to manage China's rise. But, and this is important, this American embrace is not an unconditional bear hug. It's a friendship that comes with significant pressure and a clear set of expectations. While the US wants India as an ally against China, it also expects India to align with American foreign policy on other global issues, which often clashes with India's tradition of non-alignment. A prime example of this is India's relationship with Russia. The US has imposed sanctions on countries that purchase major Russian weapon systems under a law known as CAATSA. This has put immense pressure on India, which has historically relied on Russia for a majority of its military hardware, including the advanced S-400 air defense system. Washington wants India to pivot away from Russian arms and buy American instead. India wants the benefits of friendship with the US without paying the price of total alignment. Just as India can't fully trust the United States, it faces a similar, if not even more complicated trust deficit with its eastern neighbors, China, Russia. The relationship with China is honestly the most straightforwardly adversarial. Despite being major trading partners, the two countries are locked in a deep-seated strategic rivalry. The most visible sign of this is the long-standing and often violent border dispute in the Himalayas. Multiple military standoffs have shattered any illusion of a peaceful rise alongside each other. China's assertive actions on the border are seen in New Delhi as a direct challenge to India's sovereignty, and a pretty clear signal that Beijing is not willing to treat India as an equal peer in Asia. Looking beyond the border, China's actions in India's neighborhood just add to the distrust. Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative has financed and built ports, roads, and other critical infrastructure in countries surrounding India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. While China frames this as purely economic development, India sees it as a string of pearls strategy designed to encircle it and limit its influence in its own backyard. China's all-weather friendship with Pakistan, India's arch-rival, and its consistent blocking of India's efforts to join the nuclear suppliers group, are further proof for New Delhi that Beijing is actively working to contain India's rise. This makes any genuine long-term trust between the two Asian giants virtually impossible. Russia's relationship with India is a bit different, rooted in a history of positive collaboration dating back to the Soviet era. But the geopolitical landscape has changed dramatically. Russia's growing alignment with China, born out of a shared animosity toward the United States. The abstract game of geopolitics becomes very real when you look at the flow of tangible goods like oil, weapons, and technology. These are the modern currencies of power, and how nations trade them reveals their true priorities. Take energy, for example. India is one of the world's largest importers of oil, making its energy security a paramount national interest. Historically, India relied heavily on Middle Eastern suppliers, but following the conflict in Ukraine and Western sanctions on Russia, India saw an opportunity. It began purchasing massive quantities of discounted Russian crude oil. It saved India billions of dollars, cushioned its economy from high global prices, and reinforced its relationship with Moscow, all while facing quiet disapproval from Washington. Technology, especially semiconductors and military hardware, is another critical battleground. India has long depended on Russia for a majority of its weapons, from fighter jets to tanks. But it's acutely aware Russian technology, while robust, is falling behind the cutting edge offered by the West. This creates a powerful incentive to diversify and build closer defense ties with the United States, Israel, and France. The US is eager to fill this role, offering advanced systems like Predator drones and jet engine technology. This isn't just a commercial transaction, it's a strategic one. By integrating American technology into its military, India becomes more interoperable with US forces, pulling it closer into Washington's orbit. A reality both New Delhi and Moscow understand. India's market of 1.4 billion people is a massive prize. In a world that's fraught with so many shared challenges, climate change, pandemics, economic instability, you could imagine a world where United States, China, Russia, India work together, maybe creating a new global framework, or a shared reserve currency to rival the dollar stabilizing the world economy. Proponents say the collective strength could solve problems no single country can. The BRICS Forum, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, was actually founded on a similar premise. However, the reality is that such grand alliances remain elusive. The core problem is a deep and pervasive lack of trust. The United States is not willing to cede its position as the world's leader or the dollar's role. China believes its time has come and will not accept a junior role. Russia is focused on reclaiming its great power status and resists constraints. India practices strategic autonomy and won't be locked into binding alliances. It's willing to cooperate on specific issues but will not subordinate its interests. It's like four people at the same table, each ordering from a different menu and each paying with a separate check. They may share the space, but they're not sharing the meal. The idea of a common currency, for example, just falls apart when you think about the trust required. Which country would manage it? Who would set the interest rates? China wouldn't trust the US, India wouldn't trust China, and no one would agree on a system that didn't favor their own economy. For true, deep cooperation to emerge, there would need to be a fundamental shift. They'd have to move from a zero-sum mentality to a positive-sum perspective where collective success is prioritized. This would require a convergence of political values, a shared commitment to democracy. The shared table will remain, but the separate checks are here to stay.